Founded back in 2018, the Iron Dames project is an all-female motorsport team competing in multiple racing categories, including the World Endurance Championship, IMSA, the World Rally Championship, as well as having some of their drivers competing in F1 Academy. Members of the Iron Dames team include some of the biggest female names in motorsport, including Michelle Gatting, Rahel Frey, and the current Formula 1 Academy Championship driver Dorian Pan. Now, having those ties to F1 provides the question, could the Iron Dames team be a successful entrance into the pinnacle of motorsport? So I loaded up F1 25 MyTeam, created the Iron Dames team, and simulated through the next 10 seasons of the sport. Now, the only female driver in F1 25 is Callie Mayer, and we've managed to lock her into a 10-season contract, so she will drive for us for the entire simulation. She will then be partnered alongside Formula 3 icon Nicola Solov for at least the first season. But real quick, don't forget to like this video if you do enjoy, and subscribe if you haven't already. The first season, the 2025 season, finishes much like previous simulations, but in contrast to the expected result in real life, with Red Bull Racing winning the Constructors' Championship, leading Ferrari and McLaren with Mercedes in 4th. The newest Iron Dames team managed to avoid last place in their debut season after scoring 5 points, much like the Kick Sauber team, but a higher result for Callie Mayer saw her team finish in P10. Now, those 5 points for Mayer would see her finish in P16, ahead of both Kick Saubers, but her teammate Nicola Solov wouldn't be as successful and finishes down in P22. The Drivers' Championship isn't far off what is expected, apart from Piastri down in P7, but his teammate would finish in 3rd place, just 14 points behind the runner-up Charles Leclerc. This means that for yet another season, Max Verstappen is the Formula 1 World Drivers' Champion, taking his 5th consecutive driver's title. Verstappen would score an 80-point lead over Leclerc after 7 race wins, with the runner-up only winning 3 times. Lando Norris would manage to win 4, while George Russell and the Williams driver of Carlos Sainz would both win a single race each. Now, a very big shock came at the end of the season with the Red Bull driver Yuki Tsunoda deciding to retire, but not just leave Formula 1, actually retire from the entire sport. His former bromance Pierre Gasly is also set to leave Formula 1, but will eventually return, with the Alpine team bringing in Franco Colapinto to partner Jack Doohan instead of replace him. The Red Bull team will then need to sign a new driver, and they choose Verstappen's best friend Esteban Ocon, with Paul Aron being brought into the sport by the Haas team. The youngest driver on the grid, Kimi Antonelli, is set to leave the sport, with Lando Norris jumping over to the Mercedes team. Carlos Sainz is set to move back to McLaren, with Liam Lawson making a jump over to Williams, and the Racing Bulls signing Pepe Marti for his debut. The Iron Dames team will drop Nicola Solov after his terrible performance, and will bring in that one commentator's favourite driver, Taylor Barnard. Now, alongside those driver moves, both the chassis and powertrain departments will get hit with some regulation changes for Season 2. Those regulation changes wouldn't affect the very top of the standings, as Red Bull managed to retain their Constructors' Championship, with Mercedes jumping both Ferrari and McLaren to finish this season in P2. Despite scoring less points this year, the Iron Dames actually improve on their finishing position, moving up to P7 after Haas, Racing Bull and Kick Sauber all failed to score any points. Both Iron Dames drivers would score points this year, with Callie Mayer scoring 3 points to finish in P13, while Taylor Barnard scores just a single point in his debut season and finishes in P15. The top of the Drivers' Championship remains pretty similar, with Lando Norris staying in 3rd place despite moving over to the Mercedes team. He will still finish behind the Ferrari driver of Charles Leclerc, who finishes as the runner-up, once again behind the Red Bull of Max Verstappen. There will be 103 points separating the top 2 drivers this year, with Leclerc's 5 race wins nowhere near Verstappen's 9. Lando Norris wouldn't win any races this year, but his new teammate George Russell would win just a single race, much like the new Red Bull driver of Esteban Ocon. Speaking of Esteban Ocon, just 1 race win isn't enough to keep his Red Bull seat, and is dropped with nowhere to go. The Red Bull team bring in George Russell, with Pierre Gasly returning to drive for Mercedes next year. 2 other drivers will also be losing their seats, including the Williams driver of Alex Albon and the newest Haas driver of Paul Aron. Jack Doohan moves over to the Williams team, with Kimi Antonelli being brought back to drive for Alpine, while Zane Maloney signs for Haas to make his debut next year. Red Bull have finally been stopped from winning another Constructors' title, as Mercedes return to the very top to win their first championship since 2021. Red Bull will then fall to 2nd place, with Ferrari and McLaren just patiently waiting in 3rd and 4th. The Iron Dames team improve on their points tally from last season, but so do many of the teams around them, with 11 points only securing P8 this season and being overtaken by the Haas. Callie Mayer continues a consistent performance and finishes this year in P14, while Taylor Barnard really struggles, finishing in P21, only ahead of Gabriel Bortoletto. Pierre Gasly manages to move his way into the top 3 in his return season driving for Mercedes, narrowly beating Charles Leclerc by just 3 points. Lando Norris capitalises on Leclerc's downfall and moves up to P2, but cannot quite match the tally of Max Verstappen, who takes his record-matching 7th world title. Now, he will finish just 19 points ahead of Lando Norris, as both drivers finish the season with 6 race wins. Pierre Gasly on his return, Charles Leclerc, and both McLaren drivers of Sainz and Piastri would all win a single race each to end the season. Fernando Alonso held on much longer than expected and will eventually retire at the end of the third season, with Gabriel Bortoleto moving over to the Aston Martin team, while Kick Sauber provide a return for former Iron Dames driver Nikola Solov. The Iron Dames will then take their other driver as Nico Hulkenberg is brought in to replace Taylor Barnard. Jack Crawford is then brought in by Kick Sauber. Now the other Jack, that being Jack Doohan, will be leaving Williams and moving over to Haas as Oliver Behrman leaves Haas and moves over to Williams. Some big regulation changes should hopefully bring in some big shakeups, with the aerodynamics, chassis and durability departments all being hit for Season 4. The regulation changes actually saw less shake-up in the standings compared to previous seasons, with the only team swapping positions being Alpine and Racing Bulls down in P9 and P10. The Mercedes team would remain at the very top of the standings, with Red Bull in second place and the Iron Dames team continuing to finish down in P8. Kelly Mayer had a very difficult season, falling all the way down to P18 and only scoring 2 points, but her new teammate would have a very strong season, moving up to P12, just behind his former teammate of Bortoleto. Pierre Gasly falls down to P6 this season, with Charles Leclerc moving back up into the top 3 to finish in 3rd place. The reigning champion of Max Verstappen is finally knocked off his pedestal and will not win the title this season in an incredibly close title fight. This season's brand new World Drivers' Champion will be the Mercedes driver of Lando Norris, finishing just 7 points ahead of Max Verstappen, who only finishes 1 point ahead of Leclerc. Leclerc would actually win the most races this season after he managed a whopping 7, while championship winner Lando Norris would only win 5, and runner-up Verstappen would win 3. The final race was then won by Williams driver Liam Lawson, which marks his first ever Formula 1 race win. Another set of drivers will be leaving their teams, starting off with Nico Hulkenberg, who is set to retire, while Zane Maloney and Oliver Behrman are dropped with no teams picking them up. Esteban Ocon is set to return to drive for Williams, while Zach O'Sullivan will make his debut with Haas next year. The Iron Dames team will sign the 7-time champion Lewis Hamilton, with Kimi Antonelli making a big move over to Ferrari, with Paul Aron being brought back to drive for Alpine. Now there was one department not hit last year, which was the powertrain department, but they will not end this year unscathed as they face changes for Season 5. And those small changes actually did more than the larger ones did, with the reigning champions Mercedes falling to 3rd place, with Red Bull once again returning to winning the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari managed to move up to 2nd place, with the Iron Dames team making big improvements to finish Season 5 in P5. Both drivers would have very successful seasons, as Kelly Mayer made remarkable improvements to finish in P8, ahead of her teammate with Lewis Hamilton finishing in P9, a very solid performance for the veteran driver. Charles Leclerc is able to finish in 3rd place once again, with Max Verstappen remaining as the runner-up. In fact, the top 3 will stay the same as last season, as Lando Norris takes his Mercedes to the very top once again. Now 50 points would separate the top 2 this time, with Norris taking 6 wins, while Verstappen would take just 3. Charles Leclerc and George Russell would win 2 races each, while Kimi Antonelli wins his first ever Formula 1 race. Now both Iron Dames drivers will also see major success, as they will both win a single race, marking Kelly Mayer's first of many race victories. Now 6 different drivers are set to be dropped by their teams, with 6 drivers being brought back into the sport or making their debut. Firstly, at Mercedes, Pierre Gasly leaves and presumably retires, being replaced by Alex Albon. Zach O'Sullivan was brought in last year but is dropped this year, being replaced at Haas by Richard Verschoor. Lance Stroll eventually leaves the Aston Martin team with Zane Maloney being brought in, while Colapinto is replaced by Formula 3 icon Callum Voisin at Alpine. Pepe Marti leaves the Racing Bulls, being replaced by another F3 icon Matteo Sagazeta, while Nikola Solov is replaced by Victor Martins at Kick Sauber. Now alongside those driver moves, both the aerodynamics and durability departments will face regulation changes as we pass the midpoint of this simulation. Now there were very few changes in the Constructors' Championship as Iron Dames and McLaren teams swap places, much like Kick Sauber and Alpine near the bottom. Red Bull remain on the top to win another title, with Ferrari in 2nd and Mercedes in 3rd. Kelly Mayer makes another significant improvement over her teammate this year as she moves up to P6, while Hamilton sits down in P8 with over 60 points between the two. Last season's 3rd place Charles Leclerc falls down to P5 after being overtaken by his teammate Antonelli and the newest 3rd place, the Red Bull driver of George Russell. And with George Russell's teammate Max Verstappen finishes another season as the runner-up, as Lando Norris takes his 3rd consecutive driver's title. Wins were more varied this season, with the title winner Lando Norris taking 4 race wins, while both Red Bulls would take 3 each. Both Ferrari drivers will be able to win twice, much like Oscar Piastri, who also takes another 2 race wins. Now a very big shake-up in the drivers' market this season with the retirement of Lewis Hamilton, who causes a major domino effect. McLaren driver Oscar Piastri makes the move over to the Iron Dames, with Kimi Antonelli making his eventual move over to McLaren. George Russell swaps big teams, moving to Ferrari, with Bortoleto getting a chance to shine as he moves to Red Bull. Paul Aron swaps Alpine for Aston Martin, with the French driver Victor Martins moving back to the French team. Nikola Solov comes back in to join Kick Sauber. Callum Voisin in the other Alpine is also dropped in favour of Enzo Fittipaldi, with the lowest rated driver Isaac Hadjar being replaced by Lance Stroll at the Racing Bulls after he replaces Jack Doohan at Haas. Carlos Sainz is then replaced by Oliver Bearman, with Esteban Ocon being replaced by Zach O'Sullivan at Williams. Now this season does see some major changes, with McLaren jumping 4 positions to win their first Constructors title in about 8 years. Former champions Red Bull fall 4 positions and end the season down in P5. The Iron Dames will take advantage of Red Bull falling and gain a position to finish in 3rd place, a new record high for the team. Kelly Mayer also matches the record high in the Drivers' Championship as her P6 matches her result from last season. Her new teammate Oscar Piastri also has a pretty decent debut season, losing out by just 10 points in P7. After finishing the first 3 seasons in 1st, then finishing 3 seasons in 2nd, Max Verstappen will finish this season down in 3rd. The reigning champion from the past 3 seasons, Lando Norris, will fail to secure a 4th, and ends this season as the runner-up. With both former champions failing to finish at the top, a brand new world champion will be crowned, this time in the form of McLaren's Kimi Antonelli. Now it seems that Kimi is just unstoppable while driving for McLaren, as he would take 8 race wins, while Norris would only take 3. Max Verstappen would finish 3rd with just 1 race win, but George Russell would manage to secure 2. Both Iron Dames drivers would once again win races, with both securing just 1 each. Now much lighter on the driver market this year, with Zach O'Sullivan leaving Formula 1, Alex Albon returning to Williams, and Franco Colapinto returning to Formula 1 to drive for Mercedes. A trio of driver moves then follows, with George Russell moving over to Red Bull, as Gabriel Bortoleto moves to the Iron Dames, and Oscar Piastri moves over to Ferrari. Some possibly major regulation changes, as both the aerodynamics and chassis departments are hit going into Season 8. Those regulation changes won't change the lead at the Constructors' Championship, as McLaren remain at the very top, with the Iron Dames team continuing to improve to finish in P2. Kelly Mayer remains around the same position as previous seasons, ending this year in P7, while her new teammate Gabriel Bortoleto makes major improvements and records another highest position for the team as he manages to take 3rd place. This knocks Max Verstappen down to P4, while the previous runner-up Lando Norris will once again finish in 2nd place. Now he finishes 130 points behind the world champion, as Kimi Antonelli is able to take his McLaren to yet another championship title. He would have an incredibly strong season after taking 9 race wins, with both Norris and Verstappen winning 2 each. This allows both Ferrari drivers and the newest Iron Dames driver Gabriel Bortoleto to all win 1 single race each. There are some more driver moves at the end of the season after Oliver Bearman is dropped by McLaren, and they re-signed Lando Norris. Now he's no longer a champion. Alex Albon once again returns to Mercedes, with Nicolas Solov joining the Williams team. Matteo Segazeta and Enzo Fittipaldi are dropped from their teams, with Taylor Barnard returning to join Racing Bulls, Tim Tramnitz being brought in by the Alpine team, and the final seat at Kick Sauber being filled by Esteban Ocon. Now alongside these moves, both the powertrain and durability departments will be hit by regulation changes as we head into the penultimate season. Once again, no changes at the top of the standings, with the McLaren team taking another Constructors' Championship, as the Iron Dames team remain as the runners-up. Lando Norris will only finish in P4 on his return to McLaren, but would be beaten out by both Iron Dames drivers, with Gabriel Bortoleto remaining in 3rd place. He is then just beaten by his teammate Kelly Mayer, who is able to finish this season as the runner-up, scoring both her and the team's best result yet. However, despite their combined success, it wouldn't be enough to stop Kimi Antonelli, who will once again end the season as the World Drivers' Champion. Now, it was a lot closer at the top of the standings this year, with just a 41-point gap and just 2 wins separating the top 2. Kimi Antonelli would end the season with 6 race wins, while Kelly Mayer would end hers with 4. Her teammate of Bortoleto wasn't quite on that level after he would only secure 1 race win, much like Charles Leclerc with his Ferrari. Then you have Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, who are both successful on 2 occasions each. Some big moves at the end of the penultimate season, as we will see Bortoleto and Leclerc swap teams, while George Russell and Lando Norris would also swap cars going into next year. Some smaller moves at the bottom end of the standings as a result of Richard Verschoor being dropped by Haas and replaced by Tim Tramnitz. Taylor Barnard will then make the switch over to Alpine, with Ritomo Miata making his debut at the Racing Bulls in the final season. Now looking at the results for the final season, and we won't see much change, as McLaren win yet another title, but the newest team got so close, with the Iron Dames finishing just 10 points behind the Papaya team. The McLaren driver of George Russell would only finish in P4 this year, once again finishing behind the Iron Dames drivers. The newest driver Charles Leclerc is able to retain that 3rd place on his debut season with a new team, while Kelly Mayer scores an incredible 242 points to finish in P2. But once again, Kimi Antonelli was just unstoppable, winning a 4th consecutive championship title. And much like last year, Antonelli would end the season with 6 race wins, while Kelly Mayer would continue to take 4. Charles Leclerc managed a trio of race wins, while Lando Norris and George Russell would round out the wins in the final season. And that was 10 seasons simulated, with the Iron Dames team being added to F125 MyTeam. Now I think just one more season and they would have found silverware, but it just seems to be that Kimi in a McLaren is just God. But let's have a look at the 10 seasons as a whole, see who was incredible, and see whose performances were unacceptable. Across the 10 seasons, only 3 different teams were able to win a Constructors' Championship, with Ferrari surprisingly failing to do so. The Mercedes team was successful in securing 2 Constructors titles, while McLaren and Red Bull would fight it out and both win a total of 4 times each. Much like the Drivers' Championship, where only 3 different drivers would win titles, with Red Bull's Max Verstappen winning 3 times, followed by Mercedes' Lando Norris winning 3 times, and ending with a new 4-time champion in the form of Kimi Antonelli. Now across the 10 seasons, only 13 different drivers would win races, while 4 different drivers, including Pierre Gasly, Liam Lawson, Lewis Hamilton and Esteban Ocon, would all win just once. Both Carlos Sainz and Gabriel Bortoleto would win twice, while Oscar Piastri, who was very quiet this video, managed 5 race wins. Both George Russell and Iron Dames driver Kelly Mayer would win 10 races each, with a big jump up to Charles Leclerc, who won 25. It was then very close at the top after Kimi Antonelli won 32, Lando Norris won 34, but Max Verstappen would end with the most race wins after he took 36. And that is going to wrap up another video on F125. Now if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm getting ever so close to that 10,000 subscribers goal I set out, so if you're not already, please press the subscribe button to show your support. Links will be in the description to all my various social media platforms, including my Discord server, which is the best way to receive updates about uploads, but also to talk to me and other fans of the channel. But that's going to be all from me today, so I hope you have a good day, evening or night, wherever you are, and goodbye.